I want to say thank you, Ambassador, and thank you, Undersecretary, for coming out today and accepting the awards. Some very powerful women. And I'm also really excited to introduce you to the panel today because they are also a group of very, very powerful women. So to introduce myself, good evening. My name is Sidney Walters, and I'm currently an International Relations and Strategic Legal Communications double major Spanish minor at Howard University, and I'm a junior. And I will be the moderator for today's headline panel, Purple Table Talk. Today, I am joined by Senior Advisor to the Bureau of Near East Affairs and Diversity and National Security Network founder, Asha Castleberry-Hernandez, as well as Senior Military Advisor, Rachel Thomas, Adjunct Professor Nola Haynes, Affiliated Expert at CRDF Global for Countering PRC Acquisition and Misuse of Weaponizable Tech and Talent, Political China Watcher Contributor Shirley Hargis, and finally, Department of Defense International Affairs Officer Alexandria Maloney. So to begin, we'll start with the first question. Asha and Nola, each of you are highly accomplished women of color in your fields. Where do you credit your success?
You want to go first, Nola? Nola and I did this before when we were both talking to Condoleezza Rice, which is so awesome, right? So as far as what I will look into, what I pretty much accredit to is first studying abroad. I think that has really helped me a whole lot as far as my career. And I studied abroad really early. And that's why I can send some Chinese to Shirley, right? Because when I studied abroad, I was 19, 20 years old. And that has been really helpful for me in my career in national security. Also learning languages. I think that's very important too. I'm so inspired by Shirley and many of you guys out there that know more than one language. And, being able to start that as soon as possible is extremely invaluable. Also networking as early as you can will benefit over time. Accumulate all those networks and working with people in this sector is extremely beneficial. And last but not least, doing public speaking engagements, writing op-eds at an early stage of your career too is very helpful, as well as putting your voice out there if you're allowed to, if you're not representing the government, whatever. But, being able to publish material in your young 20s on a specific national security topic is invaluable. And definitely we need more of that, especially from women of color, to do that. That's it.
I agree with so much of what Asha said, especially with traveling abroad and learning languages. I don't think that without studying abroad, my love of religion and conflict would have ever become known to me. When I was an undergrad at UCLA, I studied political economy when Africa and Latin America were like the hot button issues. Everyone was really excited about dependency theory and all these things. And I decided that I wanted to go to Ghana and study political economy from the African perspective. And that just completely opened up my world. And from there, I spent some time in the Middle East, just because I'm the type of scholar that I have to do the praxis part and the theory part. I definitely say that I'm a Freirean in that really pure sense, that I can't just theoretically think about a thing all day. I need to actually have the experience part. So when I was out there in the world, spending time with communities, I spent time in Nicaragua, learning about religion and conflict there, about their civil war. That was an incredible experience. Same thing with some time in the Middle East, but definitely Latin America and Africa is where I was like, okay, this is where I want to be. I want to think about the world. I want to be active in the world, and I want to take part in the doing. So that definitely was foundational. But as a Black female academic who kind of came back to school, so I didn't do this traditionally. I didn't do this traditionally in my 20s. I was in Hollywood then, being an actress, that's just what it was, and gained very invaluable experiences from that. But when I came back to school, I was terribly focused. I came back to school after Hurricane Katrina. I'm originally from New Orleans. And as we sit here and also go through Hurricane Ida, you know, this time in my life is very profound for me. So I've been thinking a lot about it. But I would not be able to sit here today if it were not for women that look like this room telling me that I could be sitting here, because my other colleagues in international relations don't look like this room, and they like to tell you what you should be doing, the type of research questions that you should be asking, when I knew for a fact that I was very interested in national security and identity, specifically national security, race, and religion. So understanding who you are professionally is very, very, very important. And sometimes that comes with trial and error, right? Having experiences in terms of traveling the world to see what in. And like Asha said, the network, but a very specific type of network that will also serve as mentors and sponsors. And I have to say that, you know, I've been in the academy for quite some time, but this national security space, this wonderful group of women has been an experience that I've never had. I always joke at WCAPS meetings that so every time we have a meeting, like I get super, super pumped and super excited, just because it really is that sisterhood. And it's a sisterhood that goes beyond just kind of having pretty events and stuff like that. No, it's about tackling some very issues around the world and seeing who we can connect to, you know, how we can get involved, how we can help. Like a lot of the work that's being done with women in Afghanistan, it's been incredible. The national security community has just rallied around this particular cause. So that's a very long-winded answer, but I just want to recap. If you have the opportunity to study abroad, and I would say do not let money be a reason for you not to do it. Most large institutions have scholarships for you to be able to do it. Secondly, figure out who you are professionally. If you are called to this work, then step into it. I know it can be a little intimidating. And then your network, like Asha said, make sure you are surrounding yourself with mentors and sponsors that are going to lift you up, but also give you that critical feedback when you need it, right? And I would say one thing lastly, and let's just keep it 100 in this space. Let go a lot of your preconceived notions, what your mom and daddy told you, what your grandparents told you. This is a day. And you have to be present in that. And you have to be open to the opportunities that exist within the national security community. Because I know, like a lot of Black folks, we are scared to enter this space for a lot of reasons, right? So talk to people, ask honest questions, and I bet you'll get honest answers. So that's kind of my advice to that question, and I'll go ahead and leave it there. Thank you so much, Sidney, and I'm so happy to see you.
To be here. Thank you for both of your responses. So much being the moderator here. So the next question that I have is for Nola and Shirley. How have you overcome obstacles in your professional journey?
Start us off on this one. I could sit here for an extended period of time and try, especially since I'm in the China space. I'm very deep in that space, in the Taiwan space, U.S. China, cross-strait, etc. And I'm very, very immersed in that space. And I'll say this, mindset. Please hear me when I say this. Know this more than you know anything in this life. You need to believe you're great before everyone eventually figures it out. Be humble and speak about yourself and your accomplishments in an active voice. I did this, not this happened to me. This allowed me to do something. You put in the work to reach this intended outcome. Speak power into yourself. The greatest gift that anyone can give themselves is the time to know who you are. Take that time to know who you are. It's not just about your career. You could be put on a big stage, but if you don't know who you are, it can be messy. So again, speak power into yourself, know who you are, take the time to form a circle of people that you can be yourself around. It's important to have a space that you can be you. You have to be you. We go out into the world, but a place to rest is priceless. It's truly priceless. And do not tire yourself out by being everything for everyone else. Take care of yourself and think about who deserves to have the gift of your friendship and your time. You don't have to be president to think that way. You have to think that way about your life, yourself, your space as early as possible. The more you achieve, especially in these fields of national security and foreign policy, the higher you rise, the less you see folks that look like you. And that's why I appreciate platforms like these. It's so important to see folks that look like you, yet at the same time, don't say to yourself, only if I see someone that looks like me will I pursue something. No. Remember that growth is lifelong. You know, when you're faced with a challenge, say challenge accepted. Sometimes the challenge isn't worth your time. That's fine. It's not worth your time. It's not because you're giving up on yourself. It's because you know you care about where you put yourself in your life and what you spend time on. And that's very important to allow yourself that kind of grace. And, you know, remember that growth again is a lifelong journey. Don't question yourself if you are kind and anger is the reply. Again, that circle is important. Have people around you that actually give you feedback. Have people that you can make mistakes around. Know how to carry yourself. Be stylish, like it was already said. And so that is how you overcome obstacles. There's nothing that can be. It's been a journey for me, but I'll say this with absolute confidence, and I wish this for everybody. There's nothing that can be put in front of me. No one that can be put in front of me that will deter me because of how I think about myself. And it's not easy to get to that point. There's a lot of mistakes. I know I'll make even more mistakes in the future, but you have to have that foundation where there's you know where you know that you belong. You know that you belong. Know a lot, but always seek out more to add to your toolkit that keeps your life interesting. And just give yourself grace. Make those mistakes. You're going to make mistakes, and grow into the kind of woman that not the one that you want to be, but be willing to discover what that looks like. There are still things I do today, and I'm still nervous by it. But something that is always very important to me that my parents would always say to me growing up: thrive in the discomfort, thrive in it. You can thrive in it because you made the time to find your circle, to find that place where you can rest. And that is what I would advise. If there's anything I say today, please listen to that, because life is not perfect. It's not a straight line. Success certainly isn't. It's a mess. And oftentimes how we know ourselves can be reflected in the type of success that we have. So it is worth taking the time to know who you are and know who your circle includes. Thank you.
Thank you for that response. Because we are running low on time, I'm going to move on to the next question. So I'll have Rachel and Asha answer this for me. Where are the gaps in our field, and what would it take to fix them?
I'm happy to go on that one. And I'm just really trying to find the best area to pick a gap, because unfortunately there are quite a few. And what it takes to fix them is sometimes I don't think a lot of people in this space that are not BIPOC are willing to do just yet. So where some of the big gaps, right, when we talk about resumes, even getting into some of these positions, one of the biggest things that I found is looking at, say, the USA job cycle or federal resumes. And those are things that, unless you know how to break into these areas, into these subjects, you're never going to break in unless you have that mentor or have somebody who knows how the system works to pull you in. And because of that, we are losing a lot of talent and a lot of innovation and all of these amazing perspectives to just this vicious cycle of sameness. And I know that, I echo everything that everyone has said, especially Shirley, when you talk about having that place to rest and having the people around you that know that you can be yourself at. And that's something that we are missing. That's that gap where, since the job cycle and since we don't have some of the people in the mid-level, it's really hard to get to that point where you can have that place that you can be yourself. And we see right now with Undersecretary Jenkins and Ambassador Abercrombie Winstanley, we see what their trailblazing has brought. And there's also diversity at the lower levels, but there's a gap of it within at least the middle levels of government. And that's the part that really does have the power to move and to change and to pull people up. And so those gaps need to be filled or need to be addressed by actually looking at equity and looking and understanding and having those people understand that there is an inequitable balance or imbalance and all of these different things that play into it. But it's really hard for people who don't see that in themselves, or who hear the negative or the really harsh rhetoric of being racist, where they say, that's not me, I'm not like that. And it's that type of benevolent racism almost, or the unconscious bias that stops a lot of us from getting where we are. And it's honestly it's something that I'm trying to pull people up to do. And I'm happy to be that bull in the china shop to make those waves. But I know a lot of people who they don't have that privilege and they don't have that opportunity to do so. So those are some of the gaps, is just us breaking into that system and getting to where we need to be able to pull others up.
Thank you, Rachel. I agree on everything she said. I'd just like to piggyback one point. Rachel and I are almost in the same sector where when you think about military officers or defense, there's a huge gap there. So when you look at national security, there's so many domains or different foreign policy subsectors, where it's defense, diplomacy, development, democracy. I would say the harder the security, the less we're present. What you have seen over the years is more women of color, especially Black women, have gone to the development piece. There's huge initiatives out in with HBCU, especially at Howard, where there's this Payne Fellowship, all these different fellowships trying to recruit hard when it comes to international development. But you see the numbers start to drop the harder the security is. Like at the ROTC programs, you don't really see many of us. And then so when you go over to the Pentagon, it's not as diverse. We have someone there who's working on that, but it's still a lot of structural challenges. So I think we have a long way to go. But I think there's also a subconscious issue when it comes to hard security and women of color. Some of us tend to not be comfortable with it. And I think more of us should. And you'll be surprised how much we can, understand and be able to provide policy recommendations. So at the end, I want to see all women of color involved in all domains of national security, not just a couple. And we're seeing that. And as we when we continue to project that, our colleagues outside the women of color domain will feel that that's where we want to go. Oh, you want to go to development? Well, I'm just going to route you to the development. It's like, no, I never said that. Well, most of your people are over there. So we have to make sure that as we're recruiting, we're getting everybody recruited across the different sectors of national security.
Thank you so much for those responses. And so we have one more question, and then I'll turn it over to Alexandria at the end. But this is for anyone, and anyone can jump in at this point. But what is one piece of advice that you have for the next generation of BIPOC women interested in entering the national security and foreign policy fields? Any of you can jump in at this point.
I'll just put up one thing. Definitely invest in your strategic predictability. Look at global trends, pay attention to that, and that helps you shape your mind and where we're heading when it comes to national security. And think of those non-traditional domains too. Like for instance, space. As you can see, space, you see billionaires, racing up to space. You see other countries, more like China, Russia, invest in space. United States. I mean, that's a domain that's going to be definitely more available to many Americans. But you're starting to see the beginning of it. So work on, look into those trends. There's a lot of emphasis on technology. If you didn't get your degree in technology, look into possibly taking a class on technology. infrastructure developments, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence. I mean, there's these, and also even the Arctics, there's these different non-traditional domains that we're not really paying attention to that I think you might be interested in and learn about it, take out the time and read about it. And that will help you adapt to the future of national security.
I'm gonna piggyback off of what Asha was saying in terms of knowing how you can take your passions and tie them to national security, or being able to tie them into all of these different things. So I work on LGBT issues and women's issues. And a lot of times people ask me, what does that have to do with hard security? What does that have to do with counterterrorism? And I have a laundry list of things that I will pull out and happily tell people. But it's understanding where your passions lie and how you can incorporate that into those global trends and everything of that nature. Like we talk about redefining national security. What does national security actually mean? Is it economic, health, cybersecurity? And the other thing that I always give as a piece of advice is take care of yourself. And I know that Shirley mentioned this as well, but mental burnout is all too real, and is even more real for BIPOC women and gender diverse people, because we have to live in a space where we are constantly being challenged on our own perspectives and our own experience. And we have to constantly be the teachers and expand that emotional labor and all of that. And if you are not careful, that will burn you out, and you will leave, you'll lose that passion that you had. So please take the time and step back if you need to. Take that time for yourself. Find that group of friends that you can vent with. That I can't stress how important that is to making sure that you remain as energetic and hopeful and optimistic as you can be.
And I just want to Asha, both Asha and Rachel's points, what I'm hearing in my own language is creating your own lane is how I like to think of it. There isn't a traditional way of doing anything. I think if you can dream it, if you can conceive of it, I like to tell people, there were so many things that I was told that I could not do, and that's either the right or the wrong thing to tell me, because it's kind of like motivation in a way. But, sitting here as a woman who learned Arabic in her 30s, that's not supposed to happen. So when I say create your own lane, that's exactly what I mean. Your trajectory won't look like anyone else's. So don't be afraid if you're not doing the same steps as somebody who's sitting next to you, right? And that's really the one thing that I would like to share to all the young women who are watching this wonderful event. Create your own lane. There is not a traditional way to do one thing. Okay, so do not be afraid if you have a gap year here, if you want to go in this direction and try something else. This is a calling and a choice, like Alexandria said, right? So make sure you're making the right choice. So don't think if you haven't done this by the time you're 22 or 23 or 24, your life is over. That's not the case. But have an idea, like Asha said, about what it is that you want to do just by simply looking at the world and saying, you know what? I am interested in space. I'm going to do something about that. So dream it. And I promise you can achieve it.
What I would add is think about your lived experiences when it comes to foreign policy and national security. Think about the challenges you face, because only you have faced these challenges. So that is going to heavily influence how you analyze A, B, and C aspects of whatever national security issue. That's specific to you. So always remember you have something to say. Don't think you don't. I'll use myself as an example. I speak Mandarin. I'm in this space that isn't, my parents are from Ghana, so I'm not really in that China Africa bubble all the time. And when Nola's talking about carving your own path, to be in a space where you're going to be challenged because you don't look like everybody else in the space, you're going to be challenged. And so you have to think so highly and be so passionate about what you care about what your area of interest is in. that you're going to push forward anyway. You have to push forward anyway. Have your safe spaces, of course, where you can be yourself, etc. But you have to still push forward anyway. So I say this again: think about your lived experiences and draw the parallels between your lived experiences in the areas of national security, foreign policy that you're interested in, and believe that you bring a perspective that is out of the box because of that. Thank you.
So my advice for the next generation of BIPOC women and people of color, to all who are in the youth demographic, if you will, who think that they have some interest or inkling in coming into the national security and government space in general, is do your research as best as you can. Familiarize yourself as best as you can with the resources that you have access to. So if you're in a stage, if you're a student or a young professional, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to apply this to us as mid-level and going up through senior level. If you're looking at your trajectory, short-term and long-term path, you should have a sense of the individuals who are in that space, what they're bringing to the table. Because in order for you to compete, you need to know what's on the table and where you stand and how you can bring your best self to some of these opportunities. So that can be as easy as you doing research on LinkedIn, going to see individuals who have a similar path that you may be interested in or something that sounds interesting to you, to know and understand, so that when it is time for you to start applying for the jobs or entering that phase, that you're not caught out in left field when, you know, everyone may have a master's in this or went to law school or something, just so you have a sense of what you're up against, so that you know where you stand kind of in that lineup, is my first piece of advice. And then my second piece of advice, sometimes you'll have to be a little brave and step out on faith, okay? And try to connect with someone who is in your field. I can't think of one person today that I haven't turned away. Now, don't flood my inbox, okay? But I take it seriously, because there were times where you have an ambassador Winstanley and an ambassador Jenkins who took 30 minutes to have a virtual coffee chat with me. And that changed the trajectory of my entire life. One coffee chat, one conversation. So I really promote that. Now when you do reach out and ask, because you may be saying, well, how do I reach out to this person or this high level person? Come humble, come ready to learn, come curious to learn. I'm a student at this university studying this. I see that this is your background. I'm currently a mid-level professional working at XY organization. I see that you're an expert in this space. I would love the opportunity to learn about your insights, learn about what it took for you to get here. Because that information, that learning will save you so much time that a lot of the women on this panel and here present today already had to go through, that you don't have to go through yourself. So those are my key pieces of advice. If you want more, feel free to try to, find each of us. You can find each of us on LinkedIn, and try to reach out and contact us that way as well. I'm more than happy to have. Now, I don't know if I can give you 30 minutes right now. I might have to give you 15. It may have to be email response. Don't be offended. The key is that you're getting the connection and you're getting connected. So stay flexible with us as we stay flexible with you all. So with that, we're coming up here at 6:59. We are right on schedule. Rachel, I'm sorry that I can't have your face up here as well. It only will allow us to have 5 faces on at a time. But with that, Sidney, excellent job moderating this panel. Thank you for being here as a representative from BPIA. Nola, Asha, Shirley, and Rachel, thank you for taking the time to even be here today to pour in to women whose faces we may not even see and we may not know, we may not be able to touch, but we know that we have reached new women and individuals who may now be more interested in the field and be more inspired to join into the field. So with that, we will now at 7 p.m. we will now allow for a 10-minute networking break. So if you look to the left-hand side of your screen, it's time to put our money where our mouth is. Okay. I'll be there. I'll be it's a one-on-one speed networking. So you use audio and visual. It'll look similar to Zoom. And you automatically match with someone else who is attending for about 3 minutes. Don't feel like you have to have all the answers. Let's just, introducing yourself. Where are you in life? Did anything stick out to you or anything of interest to you here? And what, maybe what brought you to the conference, something like that. And then at 7:10, there will be an announcement. Our Expo Exhibitor Fair will be open, where you can meet and chat with representatives from the Pickering and Rangel Fellowships, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, the American University for School of International Service, and Deloitte. We will also be having an off-the-record session in the sessions area where attendees, that will be beginning at 7:10. And again, I'd like to thank each and every one of you here who is attending. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to our dynamic panel. This is not, you don't see this every day. I'm just going to say that flat out. Okay. This in itself has magnitude that this is happening, and with hopes that more will continue to happen, and that organizations and donors such as those who have will continue to support Black women and BIPOC women as we continue to do this work on the behalf of a purpose that is much larger than each of us as an individual. This space is for each of you. Meet new people, network with organizations, and use this time to connect and ask questions. So with that, I'm going to head on over to the one-on-one networking session. I look forward to meeting me there. Look, don't meet me there, beat me there. Okay? All righty, everyone.